everyone, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Maddie. I run EdTech Classroom, the blog, podcast, and of course, YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about all things morning meeting. Now, I have made several videos about morning meeting on my YouTube channel in the past before. I am really passionate about morning meeting because I think it's a great strategy for helping build classroom community. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through some ideas, tips, and strategies for putting together an engaging morning meeting. And we're also going to be focusing this video on using the responsive classroom approach. So first, let's get started by actually talking about what responsive classroom actually is. Responsive classroom is a student-centered, social and emotional approach to teaching and discipline. And what I like the most about responsive classroom is that it's very much rooted in evidence-based practices and research. And it's really all about building a safe and joyful classroom community for both teachers and students. Based on their research, responsive classroom has 4 different key domains that they focus on. First, we have engaging academics, learner-centered lessons that are participatory, appropriately challenging, fun and relevant, as well as promote curiosity, wonder, and interest in students. Then we have positive community, a safe, predictable, joyful, and inclusive environment where all students have a sense of belonging and significance. Then we have effective management, a calm and orderly learning environment that promotes autonomy, responsibility, and high engagement in learning. And then lastly, developmentally responsible teaching, basing all decisions for teaching and discipline upon research and knowledge of students' social, emotional, physical, and cognitive development. In addition to those 4 key domains, Responsive Classroom has a really wide array of research that they've done that focuses on building academic and social emotional competencies in elementary and middle school students. Some of these shared practices for K-8 students include interactive modeling, teacher language, logical consequences, and interactive learning structures. In today's video, of course, we're going to be focusing on one of the main practices that's very much at the heart of the responsive classroom approach, which is morning meeting. So what exactly is morning meeting? Morning meeting occurs at the very start of the school day, typically for about 20 to 30 minutes, where teachers and students, everyone in the classroom, gathers in a circle. There are several different goals to morning meeting, specifically related to community building. The responsive classroom approach consists of 4 different stages to morning meeting. First, we have the morning greeting, followed by the morning share, then the morning activity, and then you end off morning meeting with the morning message. Now we're going to walk through each of these different stages, and I'll share some different tips and strategies for engaging students during each of these different stages of morning meeting. The very first stage of morning meeting is the morning greeting. In the morning greeting, students and teachers will address each other by name. As the teacher, it's really important that you actually take the time to address each and every one of your students by name. Students will also address each other by name as part of this activity or as part of the morning greeting. The greeting portion of morning meeting will welcome students into your classroom and will welcome them into the circle. In this way, it's really great for establishing the tone for the remainder of the school day and also helping build a culture of trust and responsibility and community in your classroom. The next stage in morning meeting is going to be the morning share. So once you've wrapped up the morning greeting, once everyone has greeted each other by name, then you'll begin moving on to the share portion. In the morning share, students will share information about their lives, information about what's going on with them, facilitated by the teacher, usually through the form of a question or a prompt. Sharing is going to be occurring in a very structured format led by the teacher. So the teacher is going to be the one that is choosing the question or the prompt that students will then respond to. Oftentimes, I recommend that teachers incorporate a social emotional prompt. So asking students a question like, what is a peak and a valley of your week so far? What's a high point or a low point? Or maybe teachers might choose a different prompt. So they might ask their students a this or that question, asking them, do you prefer tacos or pizza? And then students have to share why they prefer tacos or why they prefer pizza. Or maybe a teacher might choose to incorporate a more academic type question, asking students to share what their favorite book that they've read recently has been. There are lots of different opportunities for you to bring in questions or prompts to get to learn a little bit more about your students and for them to be able to learn more about each other. Then in terms of how the sharing actually occurs, it really depends on how much time you have allotted for your morning meeting. So for example, if you don't have too much time, you could have students share with the person sitting next to them. Or if you are able to dedicate a little bit more time to your morning meeting, you could go around the circle and each student shares with the entire class. It's really up to you based off what you think makes the most sense for your classroom structure and for your specific students' needs. Then next you'll move on to the third stage of morning meeting, which is the morning activity. I've noticed in my experience teaching that students tend to get really excited about the activity portion of morning meeting. It can be really fun, really lively and engaging for students, and it's also pretty fun for the teacher too. During the morning activity, students are going to be participating in a group activity that fosters social, emotional, or academic learning. I found that morning activity definitely tends to be a lot livelier than other portions of morning meeting, and like I said, is a really big hit with students. Now you can decide what approach you'd like to take with your morning activities. Maybe you might choose to have a morning activity that has an academic focus. Maybe you might have students do a word search with some of the vocabulary words that they're learning right now. Or maybe you might have students work on something that's a little bit more collaborative that fosters that social emotional learning. These activities can really be as imaginative as you'd like for them to be. They can focus on having students get moving, they can be singing, they can be chanting. It's really up to you and what you think your students really need in that moment. Then it's time to move on to the final stage of morning meeting, which is the morning message. In the morning message, teachers will actually write the morning message on the board for students to engage with and interact with. Now, the content of the morning message is meant to really connect social, emotional, and academic learning. So I think it's a great opportunity to set the tone of learning that's going to be happening in the next activity that you do with your students. So I oftentimes like to recommend to teachers that when they're writing out the morning message, they pick a connection to what students will be learning about in the next lesson or in the next activity. You might even add in a math question there or a humanities question to help get students ready to learn in the next lesson. Again, it's really about connecting morning meeting to the remainder of the school day and setting a positive tone for learning for the remainder of the day. Now that we've gone over what morning meeting is and we've shared some ideas for how to structure morning meeting, let's take a look at an example of a morning meeting that you could try with your students. Right now we are looking at an example of a slides presentation that I put together. I personally really like incorporating slides into morning meeting because I think it's a great strategy for students to be able to have routine and to know where they're at, which stage they're at during morning meeting. So the way this would work is as students enter your classroom, you would have this projected on your board, just a slide that says something like Tuesday so they know what day of the week it is. Then once it's time for morning meeting, you can move on to the next slide, which is going to be the morning greeting. This slide here says, good morning. Today is a terrific day in September. It is Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. Then I've added some space here to add some additional information. So maybe it's a student's birthday and you want to include that here. Maybe there's an important reminder that you'd like for students to know right at the start of the school day. You could include that as well. And then you would use this as an opportunity to begin the morning greeting. So you can go around the classroom or around the circle and greet each of your students by name. You could also have your students greet each other. Maybe they might do a pass the high five type greeting where one student will say good morning to the person that's sitting to the right of them. They'll give them a little high five. That student will do it to the next student and over again until you make it all the way around the circle. That's a really fun morning greeting that you could try with students. You could also have them do a little fist bump. There's lots of different ways that you can have students greet each other. Maybe they might say good morning in another language. This is kind of the opportunity to start off setting the tone for morning meeting, since it's really the goal here of morning meeting is to set the tone for the remainder of the school day. Then you'll move on to the morning share. So this is a really fun morning share prompt. This one says, would you rather live on an island in the middle of nowhere or on a planet in outer space? So then what students can do is either they can turn to the person sitting next to them and respond to this morning share prompt, or you can have them do a whole class activity where each student shares their response to this question. It really just depends on how much time you're able to allot to the morning share or what structure you think makes the most sense for your students. Then it's time for the morning activity. So I really like to play Guess Who with students. I think that this is a really fun way to build classroom community and for students to get to know each other. So the way that this one works is you as the teacher are going to be thinking of a student in your class, and then all of your students are going to try to ask you yes or no questions to guess which student you are. So what you might do is you might start off by saying, let's play Guess Who, ask me some questions and try to guess who I am. So again, students will ask you yes/no questions to try to figure out who you are pretending to be. Then you'll move on to the morning message. The morning message really works best when it's unique to your class. So I am going to share some suggestions that I think are really great for back to school or when you're starting off trying out morning meeting for the first time, but I'll also share some other ideas in case you're teaching later on in the school year. For back to school, you might want to incorporate into your morning message, you could introduce students to a classroom agreement, you could introduce students to a classroom routine, you could outline the schedule for the day, you could share a fun fact about yourself to help your students get to know you a little bit better. And if you're teaching later on in the school year, you could incorporate maybe a math problem, you could share a creative writing prompt for students, you could even take that morning share prompt that you shared earlier on in morning meeting and have them write a couple of sentences elaborating on their response to the morning share prompt. So there's lots of different ways that you can actually connect that social emotional learning to that academic learning that's going to be happening for the remainder of the school day. So that is the morning message. Let's take a look at a few more examples really quickly here. We can move on to Wednesday. It also can be really fun to incorporate holidays into morning meeting. This is obviously kind of a fun holiday. It's not technically a national holiday, even though it's called National Coloring Day, but this can be a fun way to introduce students to either fun holidays or national holidays as well. So this one says, good morning, today is National Coloring Day. It is Wednesday, September 14th, 2022. The morning share could be something like, how does coloring make you feel? What color crayon makes you feel happy? So students then could take turns responding to that share prompt, or they could turn to the person next to them and respond to these prompts. Then the morning activity. On a piece of paper, color, draw, and doodle your favorite hobby. And then the morning message, same idea here. Use this as an opportunity to connect morning meeting to the remainder of the school day to set the tone for learning. And then one more example here, just quickly, we have Thursday. I also like to incorporate Thoughtful Thursday onto Thursdays. So this one says, good morning, today is Thoughtful Thursday. It is Thursday, September 15th, 2022. For Thoughtful Thursday, you could share a quote with students and ask them what they think it means. You could have them respond to a question like this one that's a little bit more open-ended, thinking about each other's emotions. How can you tell how someone else is feeling? Then for your morning activity, you could have students do another drawing activity here on a piece of paper. You could have them draw a picture to share how they're feeling right now, or maybe you might have them do a movement activity that isn't necessarily connected to the morning share prompt. And then you would end off your morning meeting with the morning message again. If you liked the slides that I just shared in this video, I will have them linked in the description down below for you to check out. I've also made morning meetings for every single day of the school year, so I'll have that linked down below as well in case you're interested in checking out a morning meeting for every single day of the school year. Overall, morning meeting is a really great way to build classroom community and create a really joyful classroom environment for you and for your students. If you're looking for additional resources to learn more about morning meeting, I have tons and tons of videos on my YouTube channel that I'll have linked in a playlist for you to check out. I'll have it included in the video description for you to continue watching, or if you're interested in learning more about Responsive Classroom, I will have some of my go-to resources and books linked in the description down below for you to continue learning about the Responsive Classroom approach. Thank you so much for watching today's video all about morning meeting. If you liked this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll see you back here soon. Bye, friends.